Hello and welcome to today's video. So this time we're going to be taking our second look through my vintage Empire Strikes Back figures. We'll be giving them a bit of a clean, a dust up, and seeing just what they look like today, and if I need to upgrade any of them. So I've made lots of progress on my previous few videos and figures, and we'll go through that right now. So sit back, relax, and let's get to it. So since the last video, I have been back through the previous videos, and I've been given some help by my channel member, Mr. De Jonk, and also from a friend of mine called Graham. So Graham very, very handily sent me this, which was a little sort of visual checklist to like a handy guide to all the weapons for the vintage figures. So it was my friend Graham Miles, so thank you very much for that, Graham. Also, just generally the support on these videos has been fantastic, and it has spurred me on to make a lot more Star Wars content, so I do hope that makes everyone very happy. So since the last videos, I've been back. I've swapped one of my Death Squad Commander blue blasters for a black blaster. I swapped it with IG-88, I seem to recall. I also had to go back and swap one of my original Han Solo blasters and also one of my Snaggletooth. I needed to find a complete replacement Jawa figure because the one that I had damaged hands, and I've got one of those. I found one at a reasonable price, I think, and that's on its way. And I've also found a replacement base Stormtrooper, the original base Stormtrooper, so that is also on its way. So I'll have those ready to swap out for next time. So I am still short. I'm still struggling to find a replacement R5D4, really nice mint one with original stickers, and also the Luke Bespin. So I just need a base Luke Bespin figure. I've got the weapon, I've got the lightsaber, I just need the base figure, and that's quite an expensive figure, isn't it, by the look of it? So I'm still on the lookout for those. The other thing that's happened since we last met, so if you remember last time I had those big bases for the Star Wars figures, well, I've been to a collector's show in Exeter, and I picked these up. These are repros. These are modern reproductions of the original Death Star stands, the stands that you got with the Palatoy Death Star. So these should be much more, well, they're definitely smaller than the Protec ones I've been using, and these should be a bit more efficient when I'm putting my figures in the cabinet. So I'm going to replace, that's sort of the next job really. So I found these, and then I've gone online and I've ordered another 50, and they were about 13 quid I think for 50 of these, and I'm going to replace all those big bases that I've used with these smaller ones, because then they'll just look a bit more uniform when I put these in the cabinet. So look out for that at the very end. Anyway, we've got 9 figures this time round, and I'm hoping that they're not all going to be too bad, and I'm not going to need many replacements, and fingers crossed I've got all the correct weapons, but I have a funny feeling I might be lacking a Princess Leia. So I am still looking for a light blue Princess Leia blaster to go with my one of my Princess Leia Bespin gown outfits, and apparently the black blaster, which was just for the original figure, is much harder to get, and as you'll see in a minute, I've got another black blaster, if you can believe it. So I'm just going to have to perhaps trade that on, or see what's in my swap box, which I haven't actually found yet. My swaps bag, I should say, it's a little plastic bag with my bits and pieces in, spare, guns and what have you, and see what's in that, and then possibly I might need to do a bit of swapping online. But anyway, the first figure we're going to be looking at today is this one. So it's my AT-AT driver. Now this was a absolutely corking figure, this one. I just love it, and it's got really nice decals on the top there. It's like not showing any sort of signs of wear or anything there. Nice stiff limbs on this one. And blaster wise, he has this one, doesn't he? It's sort of like a shoulder blaster, what goes over his shoulder, sort of like that. That's how I would have it. I've seen some people have it where he sort of holds the blaster in his hand, which also looks quite cool. Let's see, sort of like that. That's pretty good, isn't it? I think visually having it in his hand like that would be better. Now, where is my toothbrush? Because even if you can't see it, all my sort of loose figures have got this, because they've not sort of been dusted off for so many years. Even if it's not visual to the eye, these definitely have got a little bit of dust on them. But apart from that, he's actually a really that's a really nice example of that figure. I like that a lot. It's certainly a cool figure. And when I was a kid, making like Imperial armies, as it were, was the thing to do. But it was mainly stormtroopers and the death squad commanders. They were the ones I liked absolutely loads of, you know. Now that is interesting because it's not going in his. It's not. He's standing up okay, but it's not so much that the figure is actually. What's the word? The actual hole is bigger than the base stand. So that is actually a bit of a disappointment. I mean, they'll stand up okay in the cabinet. They'll be used for that. But it's a shame that they're not staying in perfectly, if you know what I mean. But maybe these ones that I've ordered online, rather than these ones I just picked up at the toy fair, might make a bit of a difference. But we'll just leave that one there for now, and well, we'll see at the end if that makes much of a difference. So the next one we got is Dengar. Now, I do love the bounty hunters. I always have, and in fact I'm going to do a whole episode just devoted to the bounty hunter figures. This one wasn't my favourite one because you could sort of clearly see it was like a guy underneath, rather than, I don't know, like, well, Boba Fett, for example. You just didn't, at the time, we didn't know who was underneath it. He was humanoid in shape, wasn't he? IG-88 was obviously like an evil droid of some sort. Now I noticed when I pulled this one out that this one has got, you see that? There's a little bit of colour inside his feet there. Now this is probably from when whoever had this figure, this obviously is one that I upgraded. Whoever had this figure back in the day probably coloured his feet in. Now he just has the one rifle, which is the like the Hoth Stormtrooper rifle. That's the one I always refer to. And he just sort of carries this in his hand, doesn't he, like this. It's a pretty easy figure to display like that. I'll probably put the gun just down a bit so the tip is there. So apart from, yeah, see, those flipping stands are not great, are they? Apart from the little spots on his feet, that's actually a nice example of that one. I don't think this is particularly scarce, is it? I mean, I don't think so. Should we try this stand, see if this is any different? Yeah, see, this one's a bit tighter. So that actually does the job of keeping the figure in position. You know? See, that's really nice and secure. Maybe I just had a bad stand. Should we try a different one? Maybe it missed quality control. Let's try this one here. Oh yeah, look, this one seems better. Alright, I let them off. I won't be demanding a refund. There we are. Very, very nice. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to pulling out my my carded bounty hunters as well. So when we finished Empire Strikes Back, I'm going to pull out the bounty hunters, and we're going to do a bounty hunter special, where we'll have a look at all the loose ones and the my carded examples as well, and we'll see just how they look. But I think they're going to look pretty darn amazing, to be honest. Right then, next we have got Han Solo Bespin. Yeah, that's him. He's right there in the front. So I believe this is the right gun. So it's a light Bespin blaster. That's well and truly in his hand. I'm actually not going to force it out. So referring to my little guide here, the light Bespin blaster is number 56. Oh no, is that the black one or the light blue one? I can't decide. Oh no, that is definitely the black one, because the other one is like grey. It's not like even blue, it's grey. So number 55 here is yes, it's the Han Solo bespin outfit, definitely that one. Now this particular little accessory guide, what I do, I'll host it online in my Google Drive, and I'll post a link to it going forward in the descriptions of my videos down below. So if you want to grab that visual guide and print your own copy out, you can. Now unfortunately, as much as this was an absolute minter of a figure, and you can see, look at the moulding on it, there's hardly anywhere. As soon as you turn it round, boom, look. So unfortunately, in all those 20 years plus in the sun, unfortunately Han's trousers have faded, and they should be as brown as that, but they're not. They've gone yellow. So because of that, unfortunately, I'm going to put this Han Solo as one to upgrade, even though apart from that he's an absolute minter. What a shame that is. A tiny little bit of wear on his head there, but what a shame, because that would have done very well as a nice figure, that one. So let's put him on a stand for now. Anyway, not the end of the world, but I am gonna need a new Han Solo bespin, because that one, sadly, he's got faded, hasn't he? Look at that. What a difference that's made to the figure. Apart from that, look at it, it was so mint, the figure was stiff. I just don't think anything can be done about that to get that back. I mean, can there? Can anything be done? I did pull out my Max Rebo, and I watched my friend Dave at Toy for Lloyd. He has a process where he can sort of put the ink back in. He tried many different things, and one seemed to work. So potentially there may be something like that could be done on the hand figure. I just don't know. Right, next we've got the Imperial Commander. So let's make a bit of room. Let's put Han over there. So this was the character that was supposed to be Julian Glover, wasn't it? Julian Glover's character, although he's a bit nondescript in this. But this was a great figure, and this is nice nick. He's not got any sort of wear on the silver there on his belt and that. Yeah, I think that's a nice, perfect example of that one. So thankfully nothing to do on that. And in fact, so far it is really just that hand that stands out so far as one that is actually going to go on the upgrades list. Although displayed there like that, it's not like he's bad or anything. It's just when you look at it up close, you see that sun fading. Yes, such a shame. But there you go. There you go. Now the Imperial Commander just had the sort of the later Stormtrooper gun, to the best of my knowledge. But obviously, guys, correct me if I'm wrong. But looking at my checklist here, Stormtrooper gun number 58. Yeah. So IG-88 and the Imperial Commander had this lighter blue, what I would call the Stormtrooper gun. So that is actually correct. So that's good news. So stick that on there. Now these bases are definitely two different sorts. So some of them have got the thick bases, some of them have got the thin. So I've found another thick one here, and he fits on there perfectly. Yeah, that's a really sort of nice figure, that. Let's move them out of the way and move the Imperial Commander in spot here. Then the next one we've got is Leia Hoth. Now, I've already looked this up, and believe it or not, I've managed to find yet another original Leia blaster, and not a light blue one. So this Leia Hoth figure, she should have a light blue blaster, and she hasn't. Now the actual figure itself, I'm pleased with that. It's all right. There seems to be a little bit of discoloration on the top of her legs there, but that may be just down to the moulding rather than any sort of sun somewhere. Apart from that, absolutely fine. And one of the things I noticed on these Empire figures was how the sculptors, you can imagine on the larger version of this, they probably just got a scalpel and did some like cross hatching, because you see it on quite a lot of these Empire figures. It just gives the figures a little bit more detail and definition, but none of them compare to the great styling of, say, something like Boba Fett. But then again, they were only basing these on the actual photos of the figures, of course. They couldn't, make them up, I guess, could they? So is this going to be a suitable stand? Yes, it is, yeah. So this is another one where I'm going to have to see in my box of tricks, my little bag of weapons, if I've got a light blue blaster. So in that bag, and I must see if I can find it by the next video, I've got some stuff that was related to the survival kit, the mail order survival kit. And also I've got some bits that were regularly missing from ships, like the Millennium Falcon tracker ball, for example, or the harpoon on the end of the snow speeder, the little gun that goes on the top of an ATST rather. So those are the sorts of things I've got in that bag of goodies. It was bits that were notoriously difficult to find. I kept spares off, basically, from back in the day when I was dealing in the Star Wars stuff. So I think that will prove me in good stead, I'm hoping, with regards to these weapons. But apparently this original black blaster is much harder to find than the blue one, so fingers crossed I should be able to do quite an easy sort of trade. Right, next one we've got is Lobot. He was always a fun figure, wasn't he? Wonder how well this figure actually sold. I don't know, because he didn't really do a lot in the movie, did he? I mean, he was there, but I don't know. He was a bit of an odd one. Now, looking at this figure, he doesn't seem too bad, to be honest. He looks all right. Yeah, I mean, slightly looser arms than most of my figures, but still very, very nice. I'm sort of pleased with that one, actually. So we'll just run the old. And it's funny feeling this particular figure. It's one of those ones that in actual fact it does sort of feeling this figure, it does sort of feel a little bit, it's a bit weird to describe. It's sort of like, almost like clammy, like there's a little, I don't know, it seems to be going as I'm running my fingers over it. And it's almost like a waxy sort of texture. So I'm wondering if anyone watching has come across this sort of thing, this sort of feeling of, I don't know, maybe it's just something that's happened over time. Because there's no sort of visible signs of him fading at all. So a bit of a mystery, that one. Now, weapon-wise, he has the standard sort of light blue bespin blaster there. So that's nice and straightforward. So I'll stick that in his hand like so. But yeah, just a slightly weird sort of feeling to the body, which I can't quite sort of put my finger on really, but you know, nothing to worry about. It's absolutely fine. So next one we got is the Rebel Commander. So now this is one of the ones, this was actually the last carded one I bought, believe it or not. So I had a British, I think it was a British Palatoy one, and the bubble had got a bit damaged and I just didn't like it. The bubble was actually cut, and if there's one thing I don't like, it's a damaged bubble on my carded figures. So I actually got shot of it. I got maybe, I don't know, this is a few years ago, but I think I got about 60-70 quid for it on eBay. But then I swapped it and bought a Kenner Empire one, which is what I've got now. So that's really nice, and that was only about 60-70 pound again. So it was in my eye, and it's a really nice version of it. So in my eyes, that was a really good little trade. That. Now this is another example of the designers doing that little cross hatching on the design here. Now, looking at him, you can see sort of the middle, not a lot, but a little bit of the middle sort of torso, and even his face has in actual fact sort of yellowed up a little bit, or it's discolored slightly. But the back has as well, this back middle bit, so I don't think that's a fault of the figure being sun bleached. I think it's just how it was anyway, how it's aged. So yeah, I found another of these display stands. So these stands are very distinctive. They've got nice proper pegs, or they've got these very, very thin ones. So thankfully I've only found a handful of these small ones, so they'll have to go to one side. Weapons wise, well, he just has this shoulder rifle, so we'll stick that over his shoulder like that, and he's good to go, isn't he? Good stuff, easy peasy. Okay, next we got a real favourite of mine. It's 21B. I absolutely love this figure. I really, really do. I always did. I loved him in the movie, and I think when the figure came out, I thought that is something quite special, you know, and it was so unusual compared to some of the other figures that were around. So his little thing comes out of his mouth, doesn't it? Yeah, there we are. That's all right. So this one looks fine. He does look a little bit dusty, and I guess this has got the sort of design which picks up dust. So I've got my trusty toothbrush on him, and this will go into all the little grooves here, you know. I can't help but feel I probably would have benefited from actually giving these a wash. So something like Lobot, which has got that sort of waxy sort of texture to him. He may well have, because these have only been bagged up for about 6 months or so, he may well have benefited from a wash of some sort. But a toothbrush, you see, like this, gets in all the little nooks and crannies. So I know that at least it's not dusty. But a wash would have probably brought it up a bit cleaner. So he looks all right. I don't know, the head seems slightly... There's a few like little sort of black marks on it. I don't know. It's difficult to tell, isn't it? I just don't have enough of these through my hands these days to see how it fares. But, you know, on first look, it looks a really nice example of it. So I'm not complaining in any means. And he is such a great figure, isn't he? Another one that I contemplated trying to get a few different carded versions together, you know, sort of a mini sort of focus, but I think those days are perhaps gone now of trying to be a focus collector. But back in the day, I definitely considered it on a few figures, and he was one of them, if indeed it is a he. So the last one then is this one, the Ugonaut. So not a lot to go wrong with this. He just had his little bag, didn't he? There is a variation, isn't there, with is it a lilac like cape on him? I don't think it's one that I ever saw in all my years of dealing in Star Wars, one of the variants of this one. But it was a little figure. I remember it was a bit of a peg warmer in that people didn't pick it up, and it was a bit like the Jawa because you didn't get a lot for your money, and I could never really get my head around that as a kid. You know, you'd look at something like the Gamorrean Guard, big chunky figure, and you get a lot for your money, and then you compare that to the Jawa, and it was exactly the same price. And in my young eyes, I couldn't really... I liked to have a figure that was of value, really, so I never went for it. But I did have one of these in the end, and I don't think there's a lot more to say about it. I didn't particularly like the characters in Empire Strikes Back. I don't particularly like the figure, to be honest, but yeah, on the scale of the Empire Strike figures, it's probably one of my least favourite. But what can you do? On the whole, that's a nice little selection of figures, and there they all are again. I think they do look. This particular batch do look very, very nice indeed. There's some real iconic figures in there. Certainly the Dengar, the Attack Driver, I still think is perhaps, out of all of them that we've seen today, that one and 21B I think are absolutely still outstanding. I mean, they really, really are great figures, those, and I love them. So there you go. I hope you've enjoyed looking through the second part of my Empire Strikes Back figures. I've certainly enjoyed looking through them myself. If you have enjoyed this video, do please give it the thumbs up. Do please hit that subscribe button if you've not already for regular vintage Star Wars content, and I'll look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye.